I think I'm just going to talk for about 20 minutes, definitely not more than 30 minutes, so maybe you're listening as you're doing other things, and that's fine. There's no practice involved this week, but if you want to practice, I know that Katie, hello Prananda, Chris, so welcome, good afternoon, thanks for joining. I know we can book a practice for, I think, the same time next week. So just a couple of minutes and we will start. Make sure you get a drink handy because it's warm. And I'm not going to read a script, okay? I'm just put some points here that I need to remember, because sometimes I forget things, I get carried away with other things. So thank you to Katie. I'm not sure how I met Katie, but maybe she came to a yoga class online, or maybe I'm in a similar group to her somewhere else. But she invited me to come and do a little talk in your Self-Care Rebellion group, which I think is an amazing title, and I'm all for rebellion, especially when it comes to women and self-care. That's, you know, something that touches my heart, and it feels very honest and authentic to have a group like this where you can share and care for each other. You know, that wasn't around earlier on in my life, and I think I would have appreciated it, because it can be quite, you know, challenging to be a woman in today's world, and there's lots of things that we put in front of our own needs, in front of our own desires, in front of our own wants, because we are generally, if we have a family, generally we are charged with caring for them, and even if we don't have a family, we tend to just bring that vibe with us of caring for others, and maybe not always even acknowledging, noticing, registering that we have needs for our own well-being as well. I'm certainly been one of those people. I'm a late developer. I don't mind being a late developer. I bring a lot of experience and mistakes with me, so that can be quite handy. You know, I have made mistakes in my life. Just a little bit of context so you know who I am and where I'm from. I'm a Cardiff girl. I was born here in 1959. Grew up in an Irish second generation migrants from the south of Ireland. It was a troubled time during my childhood. You know, it was in the middle of the Troubles in Ireland, so that impacted on how Irish people were treated here in the UK, you know, for whatever reason. So I have definitely got first-hand experience of racism, even though it goes back a long way, and it wasn't very nice. My mum had me very young. I had a sister as well. I still got her. She's still around, Catherine. My mum was very young, only 19. And my dad was a bit of a, you know, he's passed away now, God bless him, so, but he wasn't really responsible. Who's responsible at 19? It was of the time. Was a heavy drinker, and you know, I was a child, I was an adult child of alcoholism. So yeah, it wasn't easy. I'm not saying it was terrible, because everyone's got their story, but it wasn't easy for my mum. She was very young, raising two girls with an absent husband, because he did a bunk to Australia. And looking back, I admire my mother, because she carried on regardless, became very enterprising, worked several jobs. There was no such thing as kind of child benefits and things like that in those days. You know, you either sunk or you swam, and she did swim, but she did work very hard, which means we lost out on a lot of nurture, a lot of her time, and a lot of mothering, basically. So I grew up, I went to an Irish Catholic school here in Cardiff, and then left school young. I was only 15, and got jobs as secretaries initially. I learned Welsh. I managed to climb the ladder, which you could do in those days. You know, I wasn't like a high flyer immediately or anything, but I did learn Welsh, got a job in the media, worked in HTV, then went on to BBC, eventually became a director at BAFTA Wales, doing the BAFTA Awards and those kinds of things, and then opened up my own PR agency, and that was my life. I've been married twice, once very young, and didn't have any children, and then my second marriage, for about 35 years, and have 5 children, 3 sons and 2 daughters, all in their 20s and one in the early 30s. Now I'm like, oh God, how did that happen? No grandchildren yet, so I'm looking forward to having that. And sadly, my marriage ran its course, and there was lots of different issues that I only woke up to late in the marriage. Some of them abusive issues, which I kind of didn't recognize at the time. So I left my home in West Wales, in Tresides, because we'd moved there to raise the children. A lovely, beautiful house that I ran yoga retreats in and did kind of healing weekends and all sorts of lovely things, because by then I had started to train in yoga. I probably started yoga when I was 52, so I wasn't young. I came to it at a difficult time in my life. So I left West Wales 2 years ago, and I've got a little flat in Cardiff. The divorce is still not sorted. It's very acrimonious from one side, not mine but his, and I haven't yet managed to get everything I need to get sorted out financially, but you know what? I'm fine. I'm in a safe place. I have a nice, clean, small, kind of convenient home. I'm practicing my yoga. I'm teaching when I can, and I'm getting on with my life, and I'm absolutely fine because I'm safe. I've got nobody shouting or performing around me, and I can just be free to take care of myself. And that's one thing when you're raising a family, and I've run many businesses throughout my life. You are always on the back burner really, because if you've got a full-time job and you're a mum, we all know those feelings of not getting any sleep and then having to get up and perform and do a report or meet a deadline in work and then take children to school or do whatever we need to do. It might not be corporate world, it could be any job, but we're always on the go. So I've just sort of entered what I like to call the 3rd cycle of my life. So I was 61 in July, earlier on in July. So I'm stepping into the 3rd cycle in my life where I am taking time, slowing down, not sort of giving up, okay, or giving in, because I ain't doing that. I never have yet, so I'm not going to do it now. But actually not in a rush anymore, which is kind of quite a nice place to be. I still have to earn a living. I still have to contribute to, my well-being, my bills. I have to pay my rent, all those different things. But the pace has kind of mellowed a little bit, which I'm very grateful for, because all of my kids are through university. 3 have done masters. They're all out the other end, and irrespective of the little blips and frustrations that COVID has given them in terms of their livelihoods and well-being in the world, they're doing all right. They're healthy, they look pretty happy, they seem well balanced, and that's all I can ask. That's all I can ask. So yoga. Yes, I don't want to share my whole story. You have to have a series. It's been quite a journey, and I'm so glad to get to this space where I feel safe and I feel I can laugh and I can express myself and I can actually step into the arena. Brené Brown is one of my favorite women. If you haven't heard of her, look her up. She's brilliant, and she talks about vulnerability and how you have to step into the arena and allow yourself to be vulnerable and tell your truth, as long as it's appropriate and it's not oversharing. And have the courage to change, and that's what I'm trying to do. So my toolkit of choice has been yoga, and I guess that some of you may have some experience of yoga. I'm not going to make any assumptions. Some of you may have absolutely none, but when I first started yoga, it was an accident. I actually went along to what I thought in a leisure centre in West Wales was going to be a spin class, and the spin class had been cancelled And I was just walking out and thinking, oh, that's a nuisance, the spin class is cancelled. And I walked past a building called the Small World Theatre in Cardigan. It's a beautiful, I kind of suppose it's one of these ergonomic, environmentally sound buildings. It's been, had a grant to build it, and it's really beautiful. And I heard some chanting. And that, my immediate thought was one of judgment and criticism. Ooh, those nutters, and what are they doing? This went through my head, I have to be honest with you. But it sounded also very beautiful. It was a summer's evening, the window was open in the building, and I heard people chanting, and I was intrigued. So I went up the steps and put my head around the corner, and there was a beautiful yogi, a young man, I would say in his 30s, with long dark hair, wearing orange, not robes, but he was wearing orange and sitting cross-legged and chanting. And he stopped when he saw me through the open door and said, well, are you coming in? And I thought, oh goodness me, what have I done? Okay, I'm coming in. Okay, I'm going to sit down. So I had my first yoga class, and it was quite classical yoga. So there wasn't any music or any sort of, hello yogis, this kind of vibe. It was a classical yoga vibe, but it was slow. We used the breath. I worked hard. I mean, I wouldn't call myself athletic. I can dance really well. I can't run. I run like a brick. I used to ride horses, always busy with the kids. I wouldn't say I was athletic, but I have got a strength in my body. I appreciate and I'm grateful for the strength in my body. And I'm not too worried about, how I look. Don't worry about it, just do it. And I found the class quite hard, but I did find it incredibly enchanting. And it touched something in me that I thought, oh my God, I think this is my thing. I didn't realize this might be my thing, because I'm used to making jokes and laughing and covering up insecurities with being maybe a little extrovert and bombastic, and I'll be always the one to make people laugh. And this was a slightly different vibe. It wasn't serious, because the yogi that was there is Nandev, one of my teachers. He taught me yoga, and he's a great laugh. But there wasn't a preciousness about it, but there was a feeling of reverence and respect and honor without being too up yourself. I kind of enjoyed the vibe. So that was my first class. I attended just a weekly class for just over a year, and Nandev came to me one day and said, I think you'd make a good teacher. You progress. As long as you take it slowly and you work within your limitations and you don't beat yourself up and you don't strive too much, the body opens up to yoga quite quickly. I mean, within 3 months I was having quite a strong practice, and I was 52. So I wasn't 25, I wasn't in a Lululemon twin set with, all the ripped muscles. I wasn't that. I was very much as I am today. Okay, I'm stronger today. My body shape has changed a bit, but I wouldn't say it's changed that much. I'm still who I was then. So he said to me, you'd make a good teacher, and I believed him because I didn't believe myself at the time. And I thought, well, am I too old? All these things you think. Am I too late? Is it too old? What are my friends going to think? I used to sing in a choir full of good time girls, and I lived in a small village, and your outlets for making friends wasn't that broad. So I was keen to fit in because I was new to the area, all these different things. And I was questioning and I was doubting myself, this inner critic that we all have, this bogeyman, and some of it comes from inappropriate messaging when we were children, this kind of, thing that sits in our ear, and sometimes it may have occurred, if somebody's put us down in school or bullied us or in our working lives, or even messages online or messages in everyday media in life, we can listen to this total nonsense and we can get hooked in. So I was like hooking myself into all of these negative things, thinking, well, no, nobody will come to me. Why would they come to me? I'm a middle-aged woman, I've had 5 kids, I've got a baby belly, I can't hide that, all these different things. And he said, That's totally not what yoga is all about. That's not what it's all about. So I trained, and I became a yoga teacher within a year, and I trained more, and I trained more, and I trained more, because I wanted to, I guess initially it may well have been, oh, I'm not good enough yet. I'm not good enough yet. I've got to do more training. Now, some people go for a month in Bali and they come back as teachers. I don't know how they do that, by the way. You know, I can't believe how they can find, you need 3 lifetimes to know what yoga involves. But I did do that, and I tended to want to specialize in work for women, which is what I teach today. I want to move into the 3rd cycle of my life with the experience and the wisdom, hopefully, I've garnered, and the lessons I've learned, and use that to help women of any age really, but I do tend to attract women maybe of 40 plus, although it doesn't matter because I attract pregnant women as well, who want to really embrace resilience, to become resilient in their mind and body, because life will always throw us a curveball. It will always throw us a curveball. So we will always get to that stage in life, I feel, where, oh God, this is great. Just got a new house, or got a new job, or my kids are going to full-time school now, or one of them's just graduated. And you get these little milestones. You think, everything's going to be great now. I've got it sorted. I'm really, really happy. I'm sorted. And that's brilliant. And it can go on for a while. But there's always something that will come up. You know, your roof has a leak, or you write off your car, or something happens, you don't get the promotion, or somebody at work is starting to intimidate you, or your husband is maybe, or your partner, or your girlfriend, or your wife is, you know, maybe not as connected as they were before. So I have found that yoga is my go-to in terms of helping me be the natural person I was born to be, my natural state. We all have a story. I can project an image here on the screen, but you can't see who I am inside. You know, we can't really, we can get a sense of energy, we can get a sense of a vibe about somebody, but we can't really see who the true, real, divine person is inside. And yoga helps you get there. It helps you to strip away the layers of the onion. It almost deconstructs you layer by layer. So it goes beyond the physical, even though some people will access it at that level, and they may practice for years before they want to go any deeper with it. They can access it on the physical, but it goes way beyond that, and it's a very profound experiential practice. You have to practice to experience it. Obviously, the world and the universe of yoga includes meditation. That's not a separate practice, even though you would think it was the way people promote it. So mindfulness, meditation, working with the breath, beautiful, deep, guided relaxation practices called yoga nidra, which if you don't sleep because of kids not sleeping, or you've got stress, or you're caring for people, 20 minutes, half an hour of guided yogic sleep is so nurturing, so healing. So in yoga, we're not trying to cure symptoms. We're trying to create space in the body, an awareness, consciousness in the body and the mind and the breath, and become more at home with who you really are, so that the masks and the cloaks don't need to come out of the closet every day. Maybe sometimes they do. Maybe sometimes you need to cope with something. Sometimes you need to protect yourself. You need to take care of yourself with somebody who actually is so unevolved they wouldn't understand a conscious person if it tripped them over in the street. We all know people like that, and we have to sometimes take other things out of our toolkit. But yoga will help, definitely, to help you deconstruct, help you heal from the inside out, find more space in the mind that is not running a loop, a kind of, film reel of nonsense thinking, which just takes you into a spiral sometimes of despair, because you are not mastering your thoughts and you're not having a relationship with them that says, this is a thought, this is not a fact. It even could be a fantasy, but I am making it in my body, in my system, in my breath, in my response, through my anxiety. I am making this a real thing, when maybe it's not even a real thing, it's a thought that passes through your head. And how many thoughts do we have a day? You know, it's something like up to 70,000 or something ridiculous. So yoga will help you discern, be more discerning about the messages you give yourself about yourself, and also the messages you give yourself about other people. For instance, my marriage broke down when the blinkers came down, when I became more aware of the behaviors in and around me, when I became aware of the overreactions and the tempers and the unreasonable behavior and the violent outbursts. Before that, and I'm not saying it would only take yoga to get you there, don't get me wrong, I had other, I had other help, I had access to other help beyond that I did seek out eventually. But I will say that unless I had been practicing at the time, I may well still have carried on with that codependent behavior, where it's okay because Linda's taking care of it. So the kids get to school, they get their food, they get to university, they get their clothes, the work will get done, the deadlines are met, the food is on the table, the retreats will carry on, because I'm making it happen despite what's going on around me. So that was quite a revelation. I also definitely increased a stable state of, you could call it health and well-being. Let's use health and well-being, because I did have certain issues which weren't caused by lifestyle. Because of alcoholism in my family, I've steered away from excesses of substance abuse, because I know that there's a propensity in my family to take that route. The disease is a family disease usually of addiction or alcoholism. It sort of lurks there unless it's called out. So I kind of called it out to myself and decided that I wasn't going to do that. But I did really rely on the discipline of moving my body, moving my body in a particular way regularly. I practice every day now. At the beginning I didn't practice every day, I do now. It's also in my gift because I do have a bit more time. I'm not raising children anymore, so I have a bit more time, and I teach, so I wouldn't be able to teach unless I had a strong practice myself. Kind of lost my track now. I'm not sure what I'm talking about anymore. But yeah, so the journey for me has been one of coming home to who I am beneath the story of what happened to me, if it was bad, good or ugly, beneath the story of those who were involved in it, okay, beneath that story, beneath the identity I have, because, I identify as a mother, a sister, I used to identify as a wife, I identify as a daughter, I identify as a yoga teacher, I have been a chef, I have been in the corporate world, I have been a PR, I've done lots of different things, I've identified as lots of different things. So people will have very different experiences of my identity, but my true identity, the identity underneath the form, underneath the body, underneath the story, is who I've always been when I was born. And we all know that sense that's inside of us, that's who we are, that space, that resting place, that place of openness, or that place of joy and happiness. It's almost like the feeling you get, when you look into a puppy's eyes or a baby's eyes, or you see a wonderful mountain or a huge ocean or a sunset, and that space, that gives you tingles down your spine. That's who you really are. You haven't been put here to suffer, even though they're suffering. You don't have to feel guilty for having fun and having a good time. I used to feel very guilty about having fun and having a good time. But not so much now, I'm just looking at time because I know I can talk for whales. Okay, so just a tiny bit more of the practices I do. I tend to love to work with women. Yeah, we are complex and wonderful beings. You know, hugely fond of my sisterhood, hugely fond. So I tend to look now at practices that I feel will bring value to women. So I look at womb yoga. I do ordinary classes as well, but I look at slow, mindful yoga to calm the nervous system down, to grow in physical stamina and capacity slowly and carefully, not going into a class where you feel you have to achieve and jump around and look like the next person on the mat. That is not how I teach. I don't instruct, I teach yoga. I teach you yoga. And all of the levels of yoga. So it's philosophy, the breath, meditation, the yogic sleep, the mudra, and of course the asana. Asana is postures. So I also teach practices for fertility. I teach pregnancy yoga, postnatal, and I've been menopausal, and I know how little help there is out there for perimenopausal women or menopausal women, postmenopausal. It's just a taboo in our society still, and most women are going to go through it. Most women, unless they have some different kind of, issues and they've had hysterectomy, but they'll still go through menopause. So we're all heading there if we haven't already. Yet you go to the doctor, and for the majority of time, you will be offered a very limited intervention. It could be like HRT or something like that, but there's very little help out there, and it's an important change in women's life. It's a huge transition. You're stepping into the third cycle of life, and it's very empowering. It's talked about as though it's, especially in the workplace, oh my God, she's menopausal, back off, hot flushes, all this sort of thing, all of the kind of stereotypical, rather insulting, kind of frippery about it. When it's a very important time in our lives, it can be incredibly empowering. It's freeing as well. You step into that stage, and a lot of women are afraid they're going to get wrinkles and they're going to get old and fat. Well, that doesn't have to be the case. And even if it is, this is what we have to embrace. It's our cycle of life that has really got us this far. So, honor it, embrace it, love it, because, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. So any of those practices I love to do. And of course I'm on, just to wrap up, because I know I've been half an hour, yoga therapy. I am training, I've done yoga therapy previously, working one-on-one with people, because it's a very individual practice. But I am developing that side of my practice, working with a medical doctor, consultant, GP, physiotherapist, to look at yoga therapy as a way to help with rehab, as an adjunct to medical help, definitely for anxiety and stress, certainly for things like, people get bad backs because of posture or stress, they get sore knees, they get sore hips. So it can be an applied therapy of the yogic practices for a particular issue, or it can just be about a health pandemic. So I love you and leave you. I have got one initiative which is free of charge. I've started, I've got a hashtag, but I don't really know what that means, called Sharing is Caring Sunday. Sharing is Caring Sunday. And on my GoSlowYoga page at 9:30 every Sunday, I am actually hoping that people will come on my yoga therapy journey, because I'll be qualified within a year, where I'll be sharing those practices, and it's going to be accessible to everybody. It won't be anything you can't do. It'll be very accessible, and it'll be about sharing those therapies week on, week off. For this weekend I think it's knees. Last weekend I did chair yoga, because some people can't get to the floor. Doesn't mean they're old or pathetic or invalid. It just means they got a limitation. Could be they've put on weight, could be they've had operation, could be that they just can't kneel on their knees. So I'm going to be quiet now because I I am, a little bit nervous, so I get a bit hyper and talk too much. And thank you very much to Katie. And if you want any more information, because I'm not here to hustle, I've been invited to talk and that's what I'm doing. But if you want any information, maybe you can message Katie, and if she thinks it's appropriate, I can send you information. So maybe see you next, what day is it today? Thursday. See you next Thursday for a class where just something loose. Don't panic, it's not going to be difficult. You'll all be able to take part in it, and we'll do a half an hour just little yoga practice. Namaste. Namaste. God bless, and thank you very much. Thank you. Bye bye.